So, I woke up one day with kind of weak legs and weak shoulders, and it progressed, and I went to my doctor, and he, subscribed some, acupuncture and some massage therapy, and an old sports guy, so I got lots of aches and pains, and we chalked it up to that. A couple of weeks later, it's getting worse. I couldn't get my shirt on. It was tough to brush my teeth, and my wife said, please, skip work today, go to the doctor. I went, he did a quick neuro test. He said, you know what, Dean? I think this is a neuro problem. I think you have ALS, and you should go to emergency. I went to emergency. I said exactly that. I was quickly put in the queue. And after a lumbar puncture and more in-depth neuro tests, they said, listen, we think you've got Guillain-Barré syndrome. And immediately I was put on a large dose of IVIG. And by the 6th day, I was normal. And the neurologist came in and said, wow, you are our dream patient. You're very fortunate. And I was let out. And about 10 days later, I had weak legs again. And that started a journey of 60 days in the hospital, 40 days paralyzed from the neck down, 10 days in ICU, and 6 days on life support. IVIG didn't seem to work that second visit, and so that was not a treatment for me. They started doing plasmapheresis. During the initial diagnosis of GBS, they were like, yep, for sure. Then it went too long, and it was too serious, it was too critical, it was too acute. They started to question their diagnosis. They checked for TB, they checked for Lyme disease, they checked for HIV. They were crossing things off the list. During the time, my body was stressing out, and I was blacking out. I was coding the stress in the heart, and so I coded a couple of times. And there's still a few parts in the story that are tough to talk about. It's about 2.5 years ago. So, you can still see the trauma and, the PTSD that you still deal with it. When I went into ICU, they told my wife to get my affairs in order, that I wouldn't survive. And if I happened to survive life support, that I would be a quadriplegic, most likely, for the rest of my life. So I knew that I was dying, and my wife did, but we didn't talk about it. And I tried to prepare her and myself. And when I went to ICU, I knew this, I knew the jig was up. I could blink and I could move my head. And the last thing I wanted to was just to live like that. That for me wasn't a quality of life. And so there was a point when you fight it, and then you face it, and then you wish for it. But the minute my body started coming alive, I just grabbed onto it, and I became like Tony Robbins in the hospital. And I was, going to physio on a daily basis and trying to cheer up, the waiting line of wheelchairs and, having fun. And it was just, you've got a new lease on life. It was amazing. I was supposed to get transferred to a rehab facility, and I had kind of fought it. I said, listen, I'm done being institutionalized. I don't want to go to this facility. How do I get out of this? I had to get reacquainted with my family. I had been gone for 2 months, and life continues. So I recovered relatively quickly at home, and I ended up getting a bladder infection. I was in the pool 3-4 days a week, and my body couldn't fight it off. My immune system was still compromised. And I went to the doctor, and he said, listen, it's a couple of rounds of antibiotics over the course of a month. He said, no, I think you're just having a bit of a flare-up. You should be okay. A couple of months later, I had a full-blown relapse. And the doctor said, okay, now you're acting like CIDP. We always thought it was some sort of variant. We'd never seen this before, but now you act like CIDP and your nerves are. So, that day I was given, the diagnosis of a chronic disease of that day. It was another hit. After recovering from this and having this diagnosis, I was put back in the system. I was going for IVIG every 3 weeks. I was on a high dose of prednisone this past year. I had about half a dozen side effects from prednisone. I experienced just incredible sadness, infinite sadness, and rage. And unfortunately, my family saw both of those. And to the point where my wife had called my doctor and said, listen, we've got to get him off prednisone. This isn't good for him, us, I scared them. I attended the GBS-CIDP conference in San Diego. And right prior to going, there was a new blood test that's available out there. It's relatively new, and they sent my blood off to the States for this blood test. And it came back that I had a unique protein in my blood called NF155. And my doctor said, listen, we know there's a connection to this bizarre journey you've had and the fact you're treatment resistant to the standard treatments. If you're down at this conference, ask around. And I went to this. The first day, there was a doctor that spoke about this unique blood protein, and then again, there's a correlation to this bizarre journey and this variant of CIDP. And what they found is a drug called rituximab. I came back to Canada, talked to my neuromuscular doctor. He said, yes, we're aware of it. There's a side effect, and it's death. So we don't look at this drug lightly. Nothing else is really working. Let's try this. Now in Alberta, it's not approved for this disease. It's about $20,000 a shot, and I was initially refused. February of this past year, I received my first shot of rituximab. Now I get one shot every 6 months. I get my blood tested twice a year. We've now gone from 40 megs of prednisone down to 2, and before Christmas I'll be off all prednisone. I'm off all the side effect pills, and I have my life back, or I don't have to live at the hospital. Because I've had this first shot of the drug, I asked what the danger is of continually getting these shots. The minute we put it in you in the first shot, I'm at danger of this bizarre rare virus, of what have you. So again, I've also, for a third time, had to sort of face death and accept it. And so again, that drives me each day to make sure I have a fulfilling day, or I have bad days, but did I have a good week? Did I have a good month? And what have you. So as I look back at my former self, I kind of like the space I'm in. Of course, I'm still working through the trauma and the PTSD and making sense of it. I haven't buried anything. I used to bury a lot of things. I used to be a high-stress senior executive in the investment world. I used to love the stress that came from work. I was driven by money. And, I cry on a regular basis. I don't need to watch This Is Us to do that. I'm more grateful for everything. I'm mindful. I'm reminded, daily, hourly almost of where I was, where I could go again. And I better take advantage of this. And my wife has said, you're a changed, person, for the better. So I think that if there was anything out of it, that's the good part. I'm on a second journey of probably being a way better human being and adding to society instead of taking out from it. So I kind of like this person, but I sure didn't want to go to hell and back and have this journey. And some people have actually said, oh, wow, you've got a gift now. And I said, I'm not quite prepared to call it a gift. Not yet. Maybe in 25 or 30 years, if I've, imprinted people and had a fulfilling life and human interactions, maybe I'll call it a gift. Maybe I'll look back on this. It's a little too soon. Be aware, we're rare. Please share.